The house on Cedar Lane had always felt calm. Sat at the end of a quiet street near Seattle, surrounded by tall trees and trimmed lawns. Linda Parker used to believe that calm meant safety. She believed silence meant peace. She believed that if nothing loud or ugly happened, then everything must be fine. That belief began to fade on a Tuesday afternoon in early June. Linda stood at the kitchen sink, watching rain slide down the window in thin lines. She had just come back from work, tired but not unhappy. Her job at the local library was steady and familiar. Books never lied to her. People sometimes did, but she had learned how to smile through that. She checked the clock. Mark was late again. It was not the first time. Over the past few months, late had become normal. At first, Linda accepted his reasons without question. New projects, deadlines, meetings that ran long. Mark had always been responsible, always serious about his job. She admired that about him. Still, something felt different now. Mark used to call when he was delayed, a quick message, a short apology. Lately, there was nothing. No call, no message. Just silence, followed by a tired smile when he finally walked through the door. Linda told herself she was overthinking. After 23 years of marriage, it was easy to fall into routines. Maybe she was just missing the early years. When Mark couldn't wait to get home, she dried her hands and turned from the sink. Ethan's shoes were by the door. Her son was home. That, at least, made her smile. Ethan had returned from college in Vancouver 2 weeks earlier. He was staying for the summer before starting his first real job in the fall. Linda had been counting the days. She missed him more than she admitted to anyone. When Ethan was younger, the house felt alive. Noise, laughter, questions about everything. As he grew older, the noise faded, but the bond stayed strong. He was thoughtful, kind, and usually open with her. She trusted him completely, but since coming home, Ethan had been different. Not rude, not distant in an obvious way, just careful. He moved around the house quietly, like he didn't want to be noticed, spent long hours in his room, or went out alone without saying much. When Linda asked simple questions, he answered fast, as if trying to end the conversation before it began. That afternoon, Linda found him in the living room scrolling on his phone. "Hey," she said, "you want dinner early tonight?" Ethan looked up too quickly. Sure. Whatever you want." She studied his face. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired that came from late nights with friends, but the kind that sat behind the eyes. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, just adjusting to being home." Linda accepted the answer, though it didn't fully settle her. She reminded herself that Ethan was no longer a child. He had his own thoughts, his own worries. She couldn't expect to know everything. Still, a small knot formed in her chest. Dinner was quiet. Mark wasn't home yet. Linda and Ethan ate at opposite ends of the table. They talked about small things. Whether a movie Ethan had watched, a neighbor's new dog, nothing deep. Nothing wrong, but nothing warm either. After dinner, Ethan offered to do the dishes, something he rarely did without being asked. Linda thanked him and went upstairs to fold laundry. She moved slowly, pairing socks, smoothing shirts. Mark's clothes filled most of the basket. She picked up one of his work shirts and noticed a faint scent she didn't recognize. Not strong, just unfamiliar. Her heart skipped, then settled. New detergent, she told herself. She carried the folded clothes into the bedroom. Mark's side of the bed was neatly made, as always. She placed the clothes on his dresser. That was when his phone buzzed. It was lying face down, screen lighting up against the wood. Linda almost ignored it. She had never been the kind of person who checked her husband's phone. Privacy mattered to her. Trust mattered more. But the phone buzzed again. Linda glanced at it without thinking. A name flashed on the screen. Rachel. Linda froze. She didn't know anyone by that name. Mark had never mentioned a Rachel. The message preview was short, but it was enough. "Thank you for today. It meant more than you know." Linda felt the air leave her lungs. She sat on the edge of the bed, phone still glowing beside her. Her hands began to shake. There could be explanations, she thought. A coworker, a client, a misunderstanding, but deep down, she already knew this was not nothing. The phone buzzed again. Another message appeared. It's time from a different name. Ethan. Dad, delete the messages. Mom's getting suspicious. Linda stared at the screen, her mind struggling to catch up. Her son knew. Her son had warned his father. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls were closing in. Linda placed the phone back on the dresser carefully, as though it might break if she touched it again. She stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk. She went into the bathroom and closed the door. She leaned against it and finally allowed herself to breathe. Tears came quietly, not loud or dramatic, just steady, painful tears that blurred everything. She was not only hurt by Mark's secret. That pain was sharp, but familiar. Many women had felt it before her. What shocked her was Ethan, her son. Her ally, the boy who used to run to her when he scraped his knee. The young man who once told her he never wanted to lie because lies ruined trust. He had crossed a line she didn't even know existed. Linda wiped her face and looked at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Eyes looked older, heavier. But there was something else there too. Clarity. She did not confront Mark that night. When he came home, smiling weakly and apologizing for being late, Linda nodded and said nothing. She listened as he talked about work. She watched him move through the house like everything was normal. Ethan stayed in his room. Later, when the house was quiet, Linda lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Mark slept beside her, unaware or pretending to be. She wondered how long this had been going on. She wondered how many conversations, how many messages, how many moments had happened without her knowing. She wondered when Ethan had found out. Sleep did not come easily. The next morning, Linda woke early. She made coffee and sat alone at the kitchen table. Sunlight filled the room, warm and calm, completely unaware of the storm inside her. She thought about the past, about the early years with Mark. They had met in college in Oregon, both young and hopeful. He had been steady, kind, and serious. She had loved that about him. Life had not been perfect, but it had been honest. Or so she believed. She thought about Ethan growing up, soccer games, school plays, long talks in the car. She had tried to raise him to value truth above comfort. Somewhere along the way, something had gone wrong. When Mark left for work, Linda kissed him on the cheek out of habit. He smiled and said, "See you tonight." The words felt strange. After the door closed, Linda called Ethan downstairs. He appeared a few minutes later, cautious, already sensing something was different. "Sit," she said softly. He sat across from her, hands folded tightly. "I saw the message," Linda said. Ethan's face lost color. He looked down at the table. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said quietly. "Dad told me it would only hurt you. He said it was nothing serious." Linda listened without interrupting. "I thought I was helping," Ethan continued. "I thought if it ended quickly, you'd never have to know." Linda felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. "Protecting someone doesn't mean lying to them," she said. Ethan nodded, tears filling his eyes. "I know. I crossed a line." The silence between them was heavy, but honest. Linda looked at her son and realized something painful and true. He was not a child anymore. He had made a choice. And that choice had changed everything outside. The day went on as usual. Cars passed. Birds sang. Life did not stop for heartbreak. But inside the Parker home, nothing would ever be quite the same again. The morning after the truth came out felt unreal. Linda moved through the house with quiet purpose, as if keeping busy could keep her heart from breaking again. She cleaned rooms that were already clean. She organized drawers that did not need order. Every small task helped her avoid the larger questions waiting in the air. Ethan stayed close, but silent. He followed her movements with worried eyes, wanting to help but unsure how. The space between them felt fragile, stretched thin by regret and fear. Linda did not push him away, but she did not pull him close either. She needed time to understand what trust meant. Now by noon, she knew she could not avoid Mark any longer. When Mark came home early that day, surprised to find Linda in the living room waiting, he understood at once that something had changed. Her calm was not peaceful. It was controlled. "We need to talk," she said. They sat across from each other, the coffee table between them like a barrier. Mark's shoulders were tense. He looked older than he had the night before, as if one night of truth had taken years from him. "I know you saw the messages," he said quietly. Linda nodded. "And I know Ethan knew." Mark closed his eyes for a moment. "I never wanted him involved, but he was," Linda said. "And that matters." Mark did not argue. He took a deep breath and began to speak, slowly and carefully, choosing words that would not wound more than they already had. He told her about the loneliness he had felt, about how work had taken over his life, and how, somewhere along the way, he stopped sharing his worries with her. Rachel was a coworker. They talked at first about projects, then about stress, then about feelings. He said it never became physical. He said he ended it as soon as he realized how wrong it was. Linda listened without interrupting. She did not excuse him, but she wanted the full truth. Half-truths had done enough damage. When he finished, the room was quiet. "I don't know what I feel yet," Linda said, "but I know our marriage can't survive secrets." Mark nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." Those words sounded familiar, but Linda did not respond to them. She had learned that promises were easy. Change was harder. That evening, Linda asked Ethan to join them. The conversation was uncomfortable, but necessary. Mark apologized to his son for placing him in the middle. Ethan apologized again to his mother, his voice shaking as he admitted how wrong his choice had been. "I thought being loyal meant protecting Dad," Ethan said. "Now I see it should have meant being honest with you." Linda looked at him and felt both pain and pride. He had made a mistake, but he was learning from it. That mattered. The days that followed were filled with difficult steps. Mark moved into the guest room, not because Linda asked him to, but because he understood she needed space. They scheduled counseling sessions. They spoke more openly than they had in years, even when the words hurt. Linda surprised herself by how strong she felt. She cried, yes, but she also spoke clearly. She set boundaries. She said what she needed without apologizing for it. For the first time in a long while, she felt heard. Ethan watched his parents with a new understanding. He saw their marriage not as something fixed and unchanging, but as something fragile that needed care. He began to help more around the house. He stayed in more. He tried, in small ways, to earn back the trust he had damaged. One afternoon, Linda took a walk alone through the neighborhood. The trees were tall, the sidewalks familiar. She had walked these streets for years, but today felt different. She realized that her life was no longer defined by what she assumed was true. It was defined by what she chose to do next. At a small park nearby, she sat on a bench and let the breeze move through her hair. She thought about love, not the easy kind, but the kind that asks for honesty, even when it hurts. She wondered if love could be rebuilt, or if it was something that, once broken, could never return to its original shape. When she returned home, Mark was waiting in the kitchen. He did not speak right away, simply looked at her, searching her face. "I'm not ready to forgive," Linda said before he could ask, "but I'm willing to see where this goes." Relief and gratitude crossed his face. He nodded. "That's more than I deserve." Weeks passed. Counseling sessions became routine. Some days were hopeful, others were heavy. Linda learned that healing was not a straight line. Some mornings she woke up feeling strong. Other mornings doubt followed her like a shadow. Ethan received a job offer in another city. Then he told Linda, fear crossed his face. He worried she would think he was running away. I think it's good, she said. You need to build your own life. He hugged her tightly, careful and respectful, as if afraid to hurt her again. Thank you for not giving up on me. Linda smiled softly. We don't stop loving each other because of mistakes. We learn how to love better. The night before Ethan left, the family shared dinner together. It was simple but warm. Laughter returned in small moments, not forced, not loud. Just real. After dinner, Ethan packed his car. Linda watched from the porch. As he loaded his bags, she felt a mix of sadness and hope. Letting go was part of being a parent. Trusting again was part of being human. When Ethan drove away, Linda stayed outside for a while, watching the road until the car disappeared. Mark joined her, keeping a respectful distance. He's a good kid, he said. Yes, Linda replied. And he learned something important. They stood in silence, the space between them no longer tense, but thoughtful. Over time, Linda noticed small changes in Mark. He checked in more. He listened without interrupting. He came home on time. These were not grand gestures, but they mattered more than words. One evening, months later, Linda and Mark sat together on the porch, watching the sun set. The sky was painted in soft colors, gentle and calm. I don't know what the future looks like, Linda said. Mark nodded. Neither do I, but I know this, she continued. If we move forward, it has to be with honesty. No shortcuts. No silence. I understand, he said. Linda believed him not blindly, but carefully. She realized then that being surprised by betrayal had changed her, but it had not broken her. It had shown her where the lines were. It had shown her what mattered. Love, she learned, was not about never crossing lines. It was about knowing when you had, and choosing to step back with humility and truth as the sun disappeared below the horizon. Linda felt something new settle in her heart. Not certainty, not perfect happiness, but strength. And for the first time since everything began, that felt like enough.